Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be making the Ashley Tote. A while back I posted this one in my Facebook Craft Crazy group, and I had a lot of requests to do a tutorial, and then I came up with this version. And ultimately, this is the Ashley Tote. This is the one we will be doing the tutorial on. And I hope you guys enjoy it. This is a really versatile tote. I think it's great for a lot of different occasions. School bag, book bag, a purse, just a tote for every day. And changing up the fabrics is going to totally change the looks. It's really pretty easy, and I did change the handles from the original version. I don't really like putting handles in the zippers. I just think it's too much, it's too bulky, and it just makes it's cumbersome when you're opening your purse. So I've changed the handles just slightly, but I think you guys are going to enjoy this version. So I'm going to go through the sizes, but you don't have to worry about writing everything down. I will try to get it all written down in either a PDF. I think I'll just put a PDF on my blog that you can download with all of the sizes. So again, you can piece this together any way you want, but these are the sizes I'm going to use for the solid one. So I'm going to make two tabs. They're going to be 2 inches by 3 inches. And the second one is optional, whether or not you want a tab like this. I stuck a tab with a swivel lobster clasp key ring on the side. That's optional. You could also put it on the inside wherever you want. So if you want to put an extra tab with the D-ring, then you're going to need 2 of the 2x3 tabs. The other one's going to go on your zipper. So when you're picking colors, you're going to pick one that you're going to want to be your zipper tab. Your inside pocket's going to be 12 inches high by 7 inches wide. Got mine cut here, just folded in half. So that's your inside pocket. You're going to cut 2 straps at 24 inches by 4 inches. And then you're also going to need a piece of, or 2 pieces of 24 by 1 inch fusible fleece. So 24 by 1 inch fusible fleece strip for each strap, and then each strap is 24 by 4. That says 12, but it's not, it's by 4. All right, and then your outer pocket is going to be 13.5 by 9 inches. So 13.5 wide by 9 inches. You need 1 piece of fabric for that. You're going to need your pocket lining. That's going to be 13.5 by 9.5 high. And then you're going to need a piece of fusible fleece for your pocket that is 13.5 by 9.25. So those are all 3 different sizes for the pocket. On the base for the bag, you're going to need 2 outer and 2 lining fabrics that measure 13.5 by 11.5. You're going to put fusible fleece on your outer fabrics, and I like to cut my fusible fleece just about a 1/2 inch smaller so that I have a 1/4 inch border all the way around. That's up to you, but I just find that a little bit easier. So that's everything you need. You're also going to need a zipper that is at least, this is 13.5 inches wide, so I would recommend at least a 15-inch zipper. Mine is, I believe this is a, let's see, I think this is like an 18, so I'll be cutting it down. But I would recommend at least a 15-inch zipper or longer, just to make it easier to work with. So the first thing that we are going to work with is our outer fabric. If you want to quilt it at all, this is the time to do it. So on my bags, on both of them, I just thought it added a little bit of character. I put just some straight line stitching, and I only went down about 1/4 of the way, maybe, let's see, about 4 inches. I only went down about 4 inches because you're not going to see this quilting inside here. But that's totally up to you if you want to quilt the whole thing or not. This is going to be the part of the bag that's going to show, is just up here. So again, I only quilted about 4 inches of it, and I would skip at least 1 inch at the top, because when we top stitch the zipper, you're going to be putting a line in there. So just to keep from having a double line or something that looks kind of wonky, I would skip down about 1 inch and then start your quilting. So I'm going to go ahead and quilt the top, the outer fabrics that have the fusible fleece. Okay, so I have quilted the tops. I don't know if you can see it. You might be able to see it better from the back. Note that on the back of the bag you will see the entire back, so that if you want that whole thing quilted, go ahead and quilt the whole back piece. I still only did the top portion on even this bag, and I think it looks really cute. So that's totally optional. All right, so we're going to set that aside, and now we're going to work on the pocket. So I'm going to grab the inner pocket piece. We're going to get some of this little stuff done. And I'm going to pull my iron in here. You're going to take your pocket piece, which was cut to 12 by 7. You're going to fold it in half. So when you cut it, if you have a directional fabric, the height is going to be the 12 and the 7 is going to be the width. So you're going to fold it in half. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of a press. Then you're going to take it over to the sewing machine and you're going to sew all 3 sides, leaving an opening. I would probably leave it on the bottom side. This is the fold over here. So I would leave an opening, 1 inch, 2 inches, whatever you like. If you want to mark that with a fabric marker, you definitely can, just so that you remember not to close it. So you're going to sew down up to your mark. Don't sew between here and back up. All right, once you have that done, you're going to take your fabric scissors and trim off your corners, making sure you don't cut your seams, obviously. If you do accidentally cut them, you can just re-stitch it. And you're going to reach inside and turn this right side out. Use a bone folder, a chopstick, point turner, whatever you want. Poke those corners out, get them nice and sharp. All right, once you have your pocket turned right side out and all of your corners poked out, and if you find that you have a corner that just doesn't look quite square, just stick a little straight pin in there and you can just pull it out. There we go. All right, so I'm going to press this, and then you want to make sure on the bottom of the pocket where you left the opening that those fabrics are turned towards the inside, and align them up so they're nice and even. Give that a good press. And then you're going to take it over to the sewing machine and you're going to top stitch on that folded edge, not on this end where the opening is, but on the folded edge. You're just going to put a nice top stitch right across the top. All right, so your pocket should look something like this. You're going to take one of your lining pieces, lay it down on your work surface. You're going to fold it in half. And just give it a little bit of a finger crease, so you know where that center point is. Open it back up. And I'm lining that crease up on my grid right here. And then you're going to take your pocket piece. You're going to fold that in half. You want that stitching to be on the top. And you're going to place that right on that crease so that it's nice and even. And I'm placing mine 2 inches down from the top. So I'm measuring 2 inches from the top. I'm lining up that center. And then you want to pin that into place. And then you're going to take it over to the sewing machine and you're going to back stitch, stitch down, stitch across, back up, and back stitch. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end, since this pocket will be getting a little bit of tugging and wear and tear on it. When you stitch across here, make sure you're catching that closure on your pocket. Okay, so it should look something like this. You might want to give it another press to set those stitches. Keep everything nice and smooth while you're working. All right, so we've assembled our lining pocket. We can set that aside. And now we're going to work on our handles. Okay, so we have two pieces of 24-inch by 4-inch wide fabric, and we have a 1-inch strip of fusible fleece. You're going to put the 1-inch strip of fusible fleece along one of your long edges. Again, I cut mine just slightly short. That's fine. I just trying to keep it out of the seams. You can cut it 24 inches, whatever you want to do. That's up to you. Once you have that piece in place, you're going to fold this whole thing in half and crease it, open it, fold this side in. It should be right at your crease. Fold this side in, and then fold it in half. And you're going to do that to both 24 by 4-inch pieces. Then you're going to take it over to the sewing machine, and you're going to stitch along both of the long edges on both sides of the strap. If you want to throw a couple extra in there just to make some fun quilt lines, absolutely do so. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so I have completed my straps, and I actually ran 3 strips of stitches. I don't know if you can see those or not, but however you want to do it, that is perfectly fine. So we can set those aside. The next thing we're going to do is work with our tab. And you have a 2x3 tab. You actually have 2. We're going to set one aside. We're going to use that one for our zipper. But we're going to take one, and we're going to fold it in half lengthwise, just like we did our straps, and then we're going to fold the edges into the center. And then fold that in half. So you have something that looks like this, and then you're going to stitch down the long side of both sides of the tab. All right, so you have your tab done. You're going to take a D-ring. I'm using a 1/4-inch D-ring, and just place it inside. Now you need to determine whether you want your little D-ring to be on the outside of the bag or on the inside of the bag. So you could put one in here so that your keys are easily accessible. I think on this one I'm going to put it on the inside. So that being said, I'm going to take my lining piece again, and I'm just going to use the same one that I put the pocket on. You can do it whichever way you want. And I'm going to put it right here about, I think I'll just put it in line with that pocket, so about 2 inches down for the top of it. And I'm just going to give myself a little bit of leeway in there so that I have room for a seam allowance. And then I'm just going to tack that down right on the edge, about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm using a 1/4-inch seam allowance on everything. I use the edge of my presser foot, and it is a 1/4-inch presser foot. So whatever seam allowance you want to use for this project, be consistent throughout. All right, so we have our lining with our tab piece in place. So we can set our lining pieces aside. Now we're going to work on our pocket pieces, our big pocket pieces. We still have one tab left. Leave that aside. So you're going to take your pocket pieces and your fusible fleece. You're going to set that aside. Okay, so we're going to take our 2 pocket pieces. You want to put this one the way that you want it to look when your pocket is finished. So if you have a directional fabric, you want to make sure that the direction of the fabric is facing up. So you're looking at it the way you would want it to look. Then you're going to take your lining piece, and you're going to place that down right on top. It looks like I cut that one just slightly a little big, but that's fine. We can even that out. All right, so once you have those 2 pieces lined up, and you're going to note the lining piece is longer than the outer piece. That's supposed to be that way. All right, and then we're going to stitch with a 1/4-inch seam allowance right across the top. Make sure you back stitch. Okay, so we have that done. So you're going to open it up, and you're going to press that seam allowance down towards the outer fabric. So again, we're working with the pocket. All right, I'm gonna pull this in just a little bit further if I can get my iron to reach. All right, so now what we're going to do is take our fusible fleece for our pocket. We're gonna place that down and line it up with the outer fabric. It's gonna overlap that seam, and that's what we want. We're gonna put it just like so and iron that into place. I actually like to iron from the fabric side. It keeps it from getting lumpy. One thing about working with a fusible fleece or any kind of fusible interfacing is you want to let it cool before you start handling it, or it will start to bubble. That adhesive is still activated because it's hot. So if you start messing with it, it's going to release. So I'm just going to let that set for a moment. Okay, so once you have that done, I've got the fusible fleece. It's on this side and it goes up into my lining. You're just going to fold your lining over. And you're going to fold your lining over until it reaches this edge. And give it a press. You're going to be folding it a little bit. That's just going to give us that puffy, binding looking edge. So when you turn it over, it looks like this. Make sure it's nice and even. You have the same amount of your accent fabric showing. Okay, so now you're going to take it over the sewing machine and you're just going to give it a nice stitch. You can either stitch in the ditch if you want. I like to stitch just below so that it just looks like a nice binding. So I've given this a nice top stitch. I top stitched on the yellow side. Again, if you want to stitch right in that seam, you can. I like the look of the top stitch, so that's what I did. All right, so next we're going to apply our pocket to one of our outer pieces, and again, these have fusible fleece on them. So you're just going to line this up on the bottom, just like this. This should match up nicely. Make sure everything's straight. If you have a little bit of overhang on the bottom, that's fine. I'm using the grid. I'm lining up the top with the grid on my mat. And then I'm going to line up the pocket with the grid on the mat as well, just to make sure that's straight. You might want to check it with your ruler. It looks good. Okay, so once you have everything lined up, I'm going to fold this in half and kind of finger crease it. If you want to do a measurement, you absolutely can, but I'm just going to fold it up and then I'm putting it the fold right on this 18-inch line. And then I know that's where my center point is. Make sure it's lined up on the bottom. Then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line that up on the 18-inch line. And this is optional. If you don't want to have two pockets in the front, you can just leave it as one large pocket, but I want to put two pockets. So I'm just drawing a line. This is a Pilot friction pen. It'll erase with a hot iron. Just beware that on your outer fabrics, sometimes this line can reappear if it gets cold. I've never had it happen, but I know people who have. So I'm just very lightly marking it. And now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine, back stitch, and stitch right down that seam. So I've stitched down that seam. I'm just going to hit it with the iron, get rid of my friction pen mark. And now you can see the bag starting to take shape. Here is our quilted lines on the top, and it goes down past the pockets a little bit. And the pocket is in place. Now you can take it over the sewing machine and baste right along the very edge of the bag just to hold this pocket piece in place while we complete the rest of the bag. All right, so it's looking like this. We've now got 2 pockets. It's basted into place. I didn't baste the bottom, but that's up to you. It's going to catch it in the seam in a little bit. So now that we have this part done, what we're going to do is start adding our zipper in place. So the first thing I want you to do is take your outer fabric pretty side up, take your zipper pull side down, just like this, and you're going to line the edge of the zipper with the pull up with the edge of the zipper of the bag. And then we're going to pull this out and we're going to clip this into place as if we were applying it right here. So I'm just going to clip this. Clip this. All right, once you have that done, take your zipper pull and just get it out of your way. All right, now you're going to, I'm going to clip this pretty close to my zipper stop. Right there. Now I'm going to take this end of the zipper and I'm going to push this end up and out of the way. Just like that. I'm going to clip it. So here's a closer look. All right. So now you're going to take one of your outer fabrics. This is going to be the front of the bag. So if you want your pocket in the back of the bag, I would use the one that doesn't have the pocket on it. One of your lining fabrics. Line this up and clip it into place as well. Sandwiching that zipper in between. Just use your same clips. Make sure everything's even on the top. Make sure when you clip this side that you leave that little tab sticking up. So you should see it peeking out right there. And then on this end, you're going to measure in 1 inch and make a mark. Make sure everything is still lining up down here. All right, so you're going to take this over to the sewing machine and you're going to stitch from this end all the way down to this mark. You're going to leave your needle down. When the needle's down, you're going to pull this zipper out of the way, and then you're going to stitch that last inch so that it's just the fabric without the zipper. So again, back stitch is beginning and the end of all your stitches. So start here, go up to the point or the mark, pull the zipper down and stitch off the edge. All right, so it should look like this when you open it up. This end is stitched together, this end is stitched together, but the zipper pulls out about right there. So you can zip your zipper back up and you're going to lay it down like this. So you're looking at your outer fabric. We're not going to top stitch it just yet. But you can kind of finger press it. We're going to take our other outer fabric and we're going to place it pretty side up. We're going to take this one, place it pretty side down. I'm going to line up the edge of this zipper and I'm just going to unzip it. Line it up. You can kind of pull this one out of your way. All right, you're going to take this end, you're going to push that zipper tail up, just like we did before. Clip that into place. Now we're going to take our other lining fabric, make sure the pocket is facing up, the open end of the pocket, and you're going to line that up with everything, keeping that tab up. The edges of your fabric should be lining up. All right, we're going to go on the end with the tail, and again, we're going to mark in 1 inch. Make a mark. Oops. And you actually are going to be sewing it this way, so you might want to turn it over from this side. So the end with the tail, make a mark 1 inch in. You're going to start here, sew all the way down, put your needle down, pull the zipper out of the way, and then sew off the edge. So here, all the way down, needle down, sew off the edge. Make sure this zipper tab stays up out of your way. All right, so if we zip our zipper back up, it looks like this. Again, we haven't top stitched. Our zipper's not quite attached on one end, and we have this nice finish on the other. All right, so we're going to attach our handles. And we could have done this earlier, but by the time you trim things down, I find that sometimes when I do it early, things just don't line up the way you want them. So what I would recommend is at this point, if anything has gotten wonky in your bag, to go ahead and trim it up. See how this end's a little bit longer? I'm going to trim that off and trim this side up and make sure everything is nice and even. Okay, so you're going to take your handle and you're going to put it on your grid, or you can just mark it with a ruler if you want. Let me grab my ruler. You can just mark it in 1 inch. So we're going to fold it up at that 1 inch mark, and then we're just going to take the end and push it under about 1/4 inch. And you can clip that closed. Same thing on this end. We're going to fold it up. I'm just using the grid on the mat. We're going to fold it up to the 1 inch mark, and then we're just going to fold that raw edge under 1/4 inch and clip. Fold it up to the 1 inch mark. Fold that raw edge under. ¼ inch, clip. Same thing. 1 inch, ¼ inch. And that's kind of helps too that I had that fusible fleece cut just slightly shorter. Just gives me a little bit more leeway when I'm folding that down. Okay, you want to double check and make sure that your handles are still the exact same length. They should be, and mine are. Now we're going to place our handles on our outer part of the bag. So we're going to measure in 3 inches from the outside and 1.5 inches down from the top of the fabric. So I'm going, that's 1.5 inches and 3 inches in, and I'm going to make a mark. Same thing on this end. 1.5 inches, 1, 2, 3 inches in. Make a mark. Now I'm going to line my handle up just like this, and you're going to want to pin that into place. And you're only going to pin it to your outer fabric. So it's right there. Make sure it's not twisted. Bring this one around and line that one up, and I'm lining the edge up with the inner edge of the handle with the mark. And then you're going to pin that one into place. And again, you're only pinning that to the outer fabric. Perfect. Now we're going to switch it around. We're going to do the exact same thing. You can kind of use these as a guide. I'm going to measure 1.5 inches down from the fabric and 3 inches in. Make a mark. 1.5 inches down, 3 inches in. Make a mark. Double check my marks with my pocket, make sure that they're the same distance. They are. We're going to line the bottom edge, and it should line up with this handle perfectly. And you want the folded edge of the handle to be down. So we're going to pin that one into place. And the same on this one, make sure it's not twisted. I'm lining it up with this one. Oh, that one's came unhooked. So the edge of the handle should be right at your 3-inch mark. And again, we could have done this when we did the panels, but I find that not only do things shift a little bit, but also it's a lot of bulk to deal with when you get the handles in there and you're trying to get your zippers into place. So now you're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and you're just going to deal with one side, and you're just going to sew a small, like a 1-inch square. If you want to measure that, you can. 1 inch is going to be about up to there. All right, so go ahead and take this over to the sewing machine, and you're going to stitch 1-inch square all the way around each handle. And make sure you're only stitching it to your outer fabric. All right, so I went ahead and sewed my handles on, and I actually put I don't know if you can see it, I put an X right through the center for a little extra stability. So I'm going to go ahead and erase my ink marks again. And again, be careful with using the friction pens on your outer fabrics, because sometimes they can reappear. It's not happened to me, but I know it has happened. Okay, so we're looking something like this. We've got our 2 handles, we've got our zipper, we've got our flap, everything's like this. I'm going to stick one of my handles down in the pocket here. And I'm going to take this handle and I'm just going to pin it to the outer fabric so that it's not going to get in my way. I'm going to take my zipper and I'm just going to pull it up here. I think I'll just clip it to the handle just to keep it out of my seam allowance. This is our seam allowance up here. When we sew across here, you want to make sure you don't catch that zipper. You only want to sew in that seam allowance. All right, so now you need to open up your zipper 3/4 of the way or so. You're going to open up take your 2 outer fabrics, and that includes this pocket and your outer fabric, mine's yellow. You're going to lift that up, and you're going to pull your lining pieces over here and your outer pieces over here. Okay, so now you're going to match your side seams up, and you're going to clip. I'm going to go down to this side, match those side seams up, and again, you're trying to keep that zipper out of your way. And clip. And then you're going to line everything else up and clip all the way around. If things have shifted a little bit, don't get discouraged. Just clip it the best you can. Make sure your handles are out of your way. Make sure this little tab is facing in, your D-ring is facing in. Don't want to sew over that, you will break a needle. You're going to leave an area on your lining fabric to turn the fabric. So I would suggest leaving it, you got a lot of bulk here. I would suggest leaving about 4 inches. I would also turn this over and see, make sure everything is lined up. You can see I got my fabrics a little wonky here. So since that's all nice and even, I'm just going to trim off this excess so that I have a nice straight bottom. There we go. All right, so you're going to take this over to the sewing machine and you're going to, again, back stitch. So all the way around, make sure when you go over these zipper ends that you're not sewing over that one that has the tail tucked in. This side, it doesn't matter, but make sure you don't hit that zipper stop. So you're going to back stitch, so all the way around, back up to your other mark and back stitch. Don't sew between the two marks. Now we're going to box our corners. So if you're not familiar with boxing corners, there are several ways to do it. I like to use a 1.5 inch square, cut it out, and then box the corners. You can also just go in and do it manually. I think this way is a lot easier. I do have these box corner templates available on my website. I'll have that linked in the description below the video. They come in 1 inch, 1.5, 2, and 2.5. We're going to use the 1.5. But you can just absolutely measure it with a ruler if you want. So you're going to go in right where your stitching lines are. So my stitching line is right there and right there. You're going to place the 1.5 mark, and you're going to measure 1.5 inches up, 1.5 inches over, and make a mark. You're going to do that on all 4 corners. Again, you're lining it up with your seams, not with the edge of the fabric. So 1.5, 1.5. Now, you can go ahead and cut these out, but what I like to do is take this back over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to back stitch right where those seams are going to meet so that when I box the corners, the seams don't come apart. So I'm just going to run a quick little back stitch right over all 4 of those corners. Okay, like I said, that is an optional step to do that. I just think this is really the best way for me to get the most consistent, nice box corners. So the next thing you're going to do is just go ahead and cut out those squares. And I do recommend you use scissors, not a rotary cutter, because it's really easy to overshoot it, and then your corners will be a little bit wonky. So go ahead and cut your squares out. All right, once you have all those corners cut out, and while we still have access to it, I'm just going to pull my iron in real quickly, and on that little opening that I left, I'm just going to press that seam open. And that's just going to make it a lot easier when I go to turn this right side out. And all I'm doing is just pressing that seam allowance open. All right, so now we're going to box our corners. So all you're going to do is reach inside the corner and make sure on this one that you keep the pocket with the outer fabric side. So there's my pocket, there's my outer fabric. I'm going to keep those 2 to that side. And we're just going to pull that apart. You're going to match one seam to the left, one to the right. It's kind of bulky. And this is why we back stitch, so that everything would stay together nicely. And you're going to clip that into place. Same on this side. I want to make sure I've got my outer fabric and my pocket and lining fabric on the same side. And then we're going to line this seam up. You can see which way this one is, so that one's down. So I'm going to make sure it's going the same way. Same thing on this end. And lastly, our last little corner. All right, so you're going to take that over the sewing machine and you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance across all 4 of those edges. All right, so we've got our corners boxed. We've got everything done. You're going to reach inside and start turning this right side out. Make sure if you pinned your handle down that you don't stick yourself. I'm going to reach in there and pull that pin out first. And then just start turning the bag right side out. Once you have it turned right side out, reach inside and push those corners out. If you want to use your point turner or whatever you're using, go ahead and reach inside that hole and get everything nice and set up. You can pull your handles out. Your zipper is going to be on this side. And you can reach in there, pull it out if it's stuck inside, and then you can go ahead and unzip it, and that'll make everything a little bit easier to work with. At this point, I would tuck everything in, make sure everything looks good. Oh, that turned out really cute. All right, that part looks good. Everything looks good. All right, so now you can go ahead and close up this lining. So I'm gonna just pull that over to the sewing machine. You're just gonna clip it. If you wanna press it again, since we press that seam open, it should nice and line up. So just go ahead and run a stitch and close that up. All right, once you have that closed up, go ahead and tuck it back in. Everything lined up nice. So cute. All right, now what's left to do is we're going to top stitch all the way around the top. When you do that, leave your zipper on the inside so you're not sewing over that zipper. Got a couple threads there. You're just going to take this over to the sewing machine and you're going to top stitch right along that top fabric. It's yellow in my case. And all the way around the bag to give that a nice top stitch. Okay, so now we've got the nice top stitch on the top of the bag. A thread in there. Now all that's left to do is to change our tail out. So if your tail is still too long, you can go ahead and decide how long you want it. And I am going to make mine, let's see, I think I'm going to make it about 3 inches. So I'm just going to take my ruler, cut it off. I'm going 3 inches from the edge of the bag, 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going to cut it straight. We still have our last zipper tab left. You're going to take your zipper tab, and this seems weird, but this is how we're going to do it. You're going to take your zipper tab, and you're going to place your zipper right in the center, like this. So we're right side up fabric against the bottom of the zipper. And you're going to fold this side of the zipper in, this side of the zipper in, like this. So you're looking at the back side of the fabric. Clip it. And then you're going to sew about 3/4 of an inch up right across. So if you want to clip it again, just to keep everything lined up. So you're just going to sew about 3/4 of an inch straight across. And I'm going to back stitch as I go over the zipper. Okay, so it looks like this. And you're just going to pull it out like this. And it's going to magically fold into place. Got a thread there. You're just going to grab your iron surface, press those down nice and neat. Then you're going to press this top part down about 1/4 of an inch. Like so. Press. And then you're going to fold the whole thing back over to meet that edge. Press. I'm going to clip it. I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew a square right around the edge. If you want to put an X through it, you can. All right, so I sewed my tab and now you are done. So I hope you enjoyed making the Ashley tote along with me. If you did, please tag me on social media when you post your pictures. I'd love to see them. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to grab your PDF directions and instructions off of my blog. I'll have all of that linked as well as the products that I used in the description below the video. See you guys, and until next time, never stop making. Bye-bye.